Okay, this next video is going to be what needs to be done in order to swap your battery for the MidNite Charge Controller. I've actually had somebody that recently had a cell explode, actually 3, unfortunately, and so he needs to decommission one battery and bring his trailer down to just working on a single battery instead of both of them. So what he's going to do is he's going to unplug right here. You got this bad battery, or you got this this Y connector. It's pretty simple. You can pretty much just unplug one of the 2 batteries, and that will drop your trailer down to a single battery. Keep in mind that if your battery that you're disconnecting is low, meaning that it's under 48 volts, you are subject to freezing the electrolyte fluid, which would be bad. So you don't want to go through any winters or through any cold weather with a battery that's undercharged. Otherwise, the electrolyte fluid can freeze. And when that electrolyte fluid freezes, these cells right here, it can actually expand these cells. And I've seen batteries where they've expanded so much that these hinges don't even fit anymore. Like, it's expanded more than a 1/4 inch in either direction just from the cell pushing outward. Okay, so if the battery that you need to decommission happens to be the one that is connected to the MidNite Charge Controller, it will be the one that has this additional splice adapter here, and this line right here, if you follow that all the way up through the tube and up into the back of the cabinet, this is the red wire that goes inside the DC MidNite photo combiner box, and this is basically your line to the battery. Now, if you need to decommission the battery and move it, you need to remove this. Now, this is a pretty easy thing to undo. When you loosen, or when you use a bolt here and you loosen that, these jaws actually open up. I don't know if you can see from there. Well, yeah, right there's a good shot. This basically just has jaws, and then inside these jaws there's little needles. And so when you splice this into the line and you tighten that down, it actually will insert these little lines into your battery here. And I don't know if I really like this. I wish they'd hooked it on differently, but this is just what we get with the DC solar trailers. Now, when you loosen this up, 2 things are going to happen. These jaws will open here, and it's going to release from this battery cable. And at the same time, this line also loosens as well. This little end here, this is a cap that they have just on the back end. And that cap just kind of sits over the end of the wire so that it doesn't, get in the way. You can kind of see when you take it apart. Now, what you're going to need to do is remove it from this cable, and you're going to have to move it over to the other battery, which is going to be here, and you're basically going to have to splice it on to this line. Now, some trailers, they started bringing this line from the cabinet, they bring it up through the middle of the batteries, which has actually worked better, because then you can go to this battery or you can go to this battery. Now, hopefully, if you're having to do this, you don't have what I have on this trailer, and that is where this line comes here up the end of this battery, because if you need to remove this battery, you're kind of in a pickle, because you got to get this red line all the way to here. Now, you could probably just get some Polaris plugs. If you don't know what a Polaris plug is, you could look that up, but that's basically a twist nut for a high gauge wire. You're going to want to basically have this wire. You might need to extend this smaller red wire so that you can reach up to this, and then you basically will just clamp that down right onto this, and then that is moving your positive feed to the other battery. In addition, they also have under here, this is the MidNite Charge Controller's temp sensor. The only reason it's here is for for the MidNite Charge Controller to measure the temperature of the battery. Hopefully this also is in the middle of your batteries here, because it would make moving it a lot easier. But you'd want to take this off of this battery and then move it over onto the negative lead of this battery here. I've peeled a few of these up. It's kind of like just a sticky membrane that's under there. It doesn't need to connect. It's just to hold it into position. I've actually left it loose and then just put that cap over the top, and it usually will hold it right in place. So once you move this red line and this blue line, which is the temp sensor, you probably want to also move your temp sensor over to the other battery as well. Again, you can see why having this line come up through the middle of the battery gives you the more flexibility, so you can flip or flop and decide which battery you're going to go to. That's pretty much it. That's the only thing that you have to do. And let me just talk a little technical here. This is your positive line feed. This is where all the power comes in from your MidNite Charge Controller. The reason why there's no negative line is because it connects onto the shunt, which is a device in the front cabinet just down here. Sometimes it's a box sticking out on the edge, and sometimes it's a box on the inside. But there's a shunt that helps measure how much power is going in and out of the battery. And so that's how the MidNite Charge Controller can communicate with the Sunny Islands, is that the Sunny Islands monitor the shunt. And that shunt is done over the negative line to the battery, and that's why the MidNite Charge Controller doesn't need to have its own dedicated line come out to the battery, because it uses this negative line that then comes down and goes all the way up into the back of the cabinet. Okay, I think that's it. As for blown cells, just be really careful. It is electrolyte fluid that's in there, which is sulfuric acid. And you don't want to cover it up with plastic or anything that would be airtight, because they do vent hydrogen. And so you don't want to create a hydrogen bomb or a hydrogen trap that can capture hydrogen, because it could ignite, and then you'd have even a bigger mess. Okay, I think that does it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, you can post it. And of course, always subscribe. I'll be posting more videos as the months come on.